you can take it away.
Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I'm Nate Sandel, the Education Director here at the Columbia River Maritime Museum in Astoria, Oregon, the official maritime museum of the state of Oregon. And while the Columbia River Maritime Museum is known for its excellence in capturing important regional history through its artifacts and interactive programming, behind the exhibits live some of the area's most innovative educational programming that's connecting our students, the next generation, throughout the Pacific Northwest.
Are you putting the colors together? That's actually really good. That's a pretty color.
Okay, so she's gonna sail down to San Francisco?
Yep.
And how long do you think this voyage is gonna take?
Probably about 2 years.
The mini boat program from the Columbia River Maritime Museum is a robust education program that has now educated over 1,200 students in both the United States and Japan. We challenge the students to cooperatively design, build, launch, and then track a GPS-enabled autonomous sailboat with the hopes that it will cross the Pacific Ocean. Each class in the United States builds 2 boats. One is to be launched from the coast of North America, and the other I personally take over to Japan and hand over to their partner class.
This program is teaching kids way more than just building a boat. This is STEAM, this is science, technology, engineering, art, and math, all wrapped into one with an international relations element. They're learning so many different skills, and they're learning what that value can bring back to their own life.
We learned teamwork and perseverance.
It was fun to be kind of hands-on.
There are so many different learners in a classroom that we can engage all 30 students with this one tool. But what I think makes a mini boat extra special is it's all hands-on, and the students get to make every decision themselves. The quartermaster department studies ocean currents and weather patterns to look for the most perfect spot to launch their mini boat. The keel department has one of the most important jobs. If their mini boat flips upside down and that keel is not engineered perfectly, their mini boat won't right up and continue on its voyage. The sail department and the deck department have complete creative control of what that mini boat's gonna look like.
If it's facing this way and that sail is pointing that way, it won't get sun at all.
Kids are strengthening skills. They also are learning about new skills and really opening their minds.
Really, it's the value we get back when these young people who as 5th graders learned how to do international relations, they learned how to work on teams and projects, they built their confidence, and a few years later they're going to be in high school challenging themselves more than they might have otherwise, and then they're going to enter the workforce. We're trying to invest in the future.
Okay, any problems we see with this?
No, don't fold it, because then it might.
As a mini boat program, we're actually preparing students for future careers. We're letting them try out all these different jobs and see where they fit best.
It's important for Pacific Power to be involved in the mini boat program because of the enriching value that this program brings to students, to stimulate curiosity, to kind of think outside the classroom box. These are all the same types of skills that our employees need to have to be successful in this business.
It's our responsibility and opportunity to invest in changing the way that we educate, like we see in this mini boats program, where kids just get engaged. And when kids are engaged, they succeed. They want to come to school, they want to accomplish great things, and these programs show them that they can.
To hear parents and teachers say that they've seen their students transform in the year that the mini boat was in their classroom, I think is the greatest compliment to the program.
I hope this program does help students to start thinking about their future and what kind of career they might want. And for some of these students that they choose to stay close to home, I think it's wonderful for them to learn about some of the things they could do right here.
Hopefully when they see these boats and they see the videos of them sailing away, they think, I built that. I built a boat that sailed across the Pacific Ocean when I was in 5th grade. The physical boats themselves are small, but the voyages that they go on are mighty. The students who build them are small, but the things they accomplish when they come together are mighty. Well, I just wanted to start out a little bit with how this program got started. The inspiration is in 2011, an earthquake and tsunami in Japan resulted in some debris from that country ending up on the shores of Oregon and Washington. One of those items, a fishing vessel, the Saisho Maru, is now on display at the Columbia River Maritime Museum. That boat, as well as the top of a torii gate called a kasagi that was also found on our local beach, helped inspire this program. We did it as a way to replicate their journey through an educational experience. And here's how the program works. Each school in the United States builds 2 mini boats, one to launch from the coast of North America, and the other to send to their partner school in Japan to launch from there. So what happens first is during 8 weeks in the fall, the class builds 2 different hulled mini boats, one again to be launched from Japan and one to be taken from North America. So basically what happens is they spend, the students, 8 weeks constructing that mini boat. And then when it's almost fully complete, we pack them up, put them in the belly of an airplane, and I personally fly them over to Japan. That is after we go through security at PDX. These mini boats have a really cool cargo hold inside, and the students pack gifts for their counterparts in Japan. But of course, the TSA has to open up that and go through all of those cargo holds. So after a super long flight, we land in Tokyo, and the mini boats get shipped up to Hachinohe. It's about a 4-hour ride on the Shinkansen, or the bullet train, to the small villages surrounding Hachinohe. This is Okuki Elementary School, one of 3 different schools in Hachinohe that we work with. So as soon as we get there, we enter in the school. Of course, we go through the left-hand side door, and the right side door is only for the students. So we spend about a week in Hachinohe, meeting with the students, meeting with the Coast Guard, and finishing the assembly of the boats. The first thing we do is the students open up that cargo hold and see what gifts the American students packed in there for them. They take out those gifts and distribute them, and the Japanese students then put gifts for the American students back into the cargo hold. We have to attach the mast, we have to attach the GPS unit, and then finally, we paint the name of the Japanese boat on the transom. So the Japanese students get to name the boat that is launched from Japan, and the American students get to name the boat launched from the United States. Another really cool partnership thing is each sail that is on a mini boat, one side is painted by the Japanese students and the other side is painted by the American students. And I bring that second sailboat back home. So it's really neat that both vessels launched from both sides of the coast have pieces of students from both sides of the Pacific Ocean. So after a very exciting ceremony that includes singing and dancing and a lot of speeches, we take our big photograph and we head down to the port to launch those mini boats. If you remember me saying that the program was inspired by the Saisho Maru, the tsunami debris boat that washed ashore, and then I also mentioned that torii gate, the top part called the kasagi. What I didn't mention is that kasagi was returned back to Japan with some fundraising from the Japanese Portland Japanese Garden. And you can actually see that Shinto shrine from the school of Okuki Elementary. And here I am pictured in 2017 underneath of that shrine with the students from that elementary school. So they had already had this partnership built in with Oregon. They have great feelings toward the people of the Oregon coast for returning that kasagi to them. So it just kind of made that natural fit for the program. We also meet with local fishing captains to find the exact location where the currents converge, where we can give that mini boat its best shot. So the students actually carry their boats down from their school down to the port. We have a little parade. we do a little bit more dancing, and then the mini boats are officially loaded onto the fishing boat. And some of the people come, say goodbye, all the kids are screaming and yelling. It's an exciting moment. And so we steam out about 20 kilometers off the coast of northern Japan. And that's where we launched the mini boats. And I'm showing this picture here. The woman I'm photographed with, her name is Angelica, and she is actually from Portland, and she acts as my interpreter. She's part of a program called the JET program, where the Japanese government hires American graduates to come over and help with translations and international relations. And although there is the superintendent and the principals from each school and some media on board, you only see us here because everybody else is laying on the ground extremely, extremely seasick. So we were kind of laughing that, you know, we were the only ones who didn't get really, really sick. And actually, when we got back, one of the principals was still feeling really, really queasy. And actually, we saw him pulled over on the side of the road, throwing up in the ditch on the way back to the school. He did not make it back to the school that day. So here is one of our boats being launched, and this is the Go Go Okuki Go. This was launched in 2017 on Thanksgiving Day, and I am extremely proud to report that last night she finally crossed the international date line and is halfway here to the United States. So you can also see why some of the teachers and people were getting a little seasick here. As you can see, the waves were rolling at about 10 feet high when we were launching those boats that day. So that's the Japanese boat. So after the American boat is finally all put together, in January, we have a mini boat summit and christening. And that is where all the American students come together to celebrate, and then we launch those boats as well. And you can't go wrong. You can't have a boat christening without, of course, a little bottle of sparkling cider when you're working with middle school and elementary school students. But besides talking about all the sciences, and we'll get into that in a minute, we also are trying to teach students some maritime tradition. So we talk about christening, we do an actual Japanese christening ceremony on the Japanese boat, just trying to get those kids with the lore of the sea. So the students actually pack up their boats on their school bus, and they drive them to the Columbia River Maritime Museum, carry their boats ceremoniously through our galleries, and then that's where we actually have the mini boat summit. A member from each school comes up and talks about the project and what it meant to them. And then they also talk about how they came up with the name of their boat. So the only decision that the class makes as a whole is the name of that mini boat. And sometimes they come together on it pretty quickly, and sometimes it's a bit of debate. But I will say, hands down, my favorite named mini boat was the boat called Filbert. And the young woman on the left-hand side of the screen, her name is Bella, and she volunteered at a retirement community and had kind of developed a special friendship with a man named Phil, or Filbert was his full name. And Filbert, you can see is pictured up there, had Alzheimer's, but before he got real sick, he loved to sail. And he had a little model sailboat in his room that was named Filbert. And Bella just thought that she would really love to name their class's mini boat after Phil, who had recently passed away. Pictured there is his widow, who attended the mini boat summit and was so moved that a fifth grader, with her interactions with her husband, convinced her entire class to name her mini boat the Filbert. And so there you can see, just in the traditional way, here is the Filbert being christened. So what's also really cool about the mini boat program is we get a lot of community and corporate and government partners who help make our launches come together. So here you can see the Columbia River Bar Pilots and their pilot boat Astoria, which is a really great vessel for launching our mini boats here at the mouth of the Columbia River. On the back of the vessel, they have a this would be American we also use our partners here, the U.S. Coast Guard, who actually dock at the 17th Street Pier right in front of the Columbia River Maritime Museum. So we typically use the Coast Guard to launch vessels where students want them further south. So the Steadfast actually goes out and does drug interdiction patrols off the coast of Central America and Mexico, right where those trade winds pick up and carrying across the Pacific. So a lot of the quartermasters, or the students who are in charge of where those boats are launched from, will ask the Coast Guard to launch their vessel for them. And then they get some really cool photographs of the Coast Guard launching their vessels out into the Southern Ocean. We've also used research vessels from the from Oregon State University, and the University of Alaska Fairbanks have also launched vessels for us, as well as international telecommunication vessels who lay undersea fiber optic cables. They have also launched mini boats for us as well. And the captain tells us it's a really fun thing for the crew to take part of this little educational program as part of their normal day-to-day duties.
Hey, Nate.
Yes.
I just wanted to stop you and just say, when a video comes on, it's really hard to hear you talking because the video is pretty loud. So just keep that in mind.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for the reminder. I'll make sure to not try to narrate over those videos.
Yeah, that's great. All right.
So the amazing thing is when the boats finally hit the water, the program isn't over. It's actually just the start of the journey and the ocean learning. Since the program started in 2017, more than 1,200 students on both sides of the Pacific have been involved in the launching of 27 mini boats. And as of this morning, those mini boats have traveled 60,469 nautical miles. And these boats are tracked daily, and the students are still building the skills that they honed in to launch them. So even though there's not school now, or if you built your mini boat 3 years ago, it's still tracking. You just go to the Columbia River Maritime Museum's website, click on the mini boat tab, and it lists all of the boats that were built. You click on track boats, and it will bring you to a map, current location of all 27 of our mini boats. If you want more information about individual mini boats, the students have created their own webpage that will show the tracking of just that mini boat, some statistics on the side, and then also will go around and tell you the story of their mini boat, which is really cool. They can keep up their writing skills and their photography skills, and building these websites to keep the rest of the country and the world actually updated on those mini boats. So the real question I'd like to get into now is, how do these mini boats get built? This is a student-led program. So the mini boat is a system, and it's made up of a bunch of different departments. And those departments must come together to complete the project and form a unified whole mini boat. So as the adult and the teacher, we don't get involved. Each student chooses which department they want to be on, and then they run that department. Of course, I give them instructions about what to do, and I guide them and help them. But every single decision about this mini boat is made by the students, which is really empowering, and it gives them that real value added thing that no adult's telling me what to do. We get to do whatever we want. So the students are told what those departments are on the first day, and then they think, where do I fit best? What sort of skills do I want to hone? What sort of skills am I already good at? Where could I best help out my classmates or my shipmates with this project? So the very first department is the quartermasters, and the quartermasters are in charge of navigation. So what they do is they make a decision about where they want to launch that mini boat. So they spend weeks studying ocean currents and weather patterns and thinking, where are we going to launch this mini boat off the coast of North America? That's the only rule they're given, is it has to be launched off of North America. Where is the best spot to give this thing the best chance to make it to Japan? So they make what we call a mini boat cone of uncertainty, sort of like the hurricane cone of uncertainties that they show on the news. And we project out from that launch point where we think that mini boat might go. And then the students actually write instructions to anybody who finds that mini boat and all of the languages in the countries it might land, so that whoever finds it can contact them and let us know, hey, we've got your mini boat. So that's a really, really important aspect, team. We like to call them the bosses and main decision makers. You know, if you launch your boat in the right spot, it could come back to shore really, really quickly. Here's a quick little explanation of what some of the different students have written on their mini boats. And we'll talk about the application of these as well. And then also the translation is really, really important. The very first year, we were doing some translations, and I said, you know, I don't think we should rely on Google Translate. So let's write some letters. Let's try to find some people who are native speakers of this language to check your mini boat instructions before we adhere them to the deck of the boat. And it was really funny. One of them was in Thai, and we heard back from a native Thai speaker, and she said, it actually says on here, if you find our boat, to shoot it. And what we meant to say was, if you find our boat, take a photograph and send it to us. And so we certainly don't want people shooting mini boats in the middle of the ocean. So we made those changes. And it was a really good, valuable lesson to the students of always have native speakers check your translations. So another really exciting department is the keel department. The number one reason why our mini boats aren't successful is that they flip upside down and don't self-right. And what makes a mini boat self-righting is having that keel engineered to a perfectly 13.5 weighted pound keel if that boat weighs 40 pounds. If we load more cargo into that boat and make it heavier than 40 pounds, we have to go through a whole bunch more math calculations to weight that keel perfectly. So these students are mathematicians, and they are very, very good at measuring, because the way that we fill this keel and weight it is we mix it with a resin and a hardener, an epoxy mixture with sand. And so these students have to measure out the exact amounts to make this chemical reaction work. And there you can see them filling the keel with the sand. And then the final step of the keel is to actually attach it and make sure that that keel is set and laid perfectly straight on that mini boat. That way the boat will track in a straight line. So these are our engineers, our mathematicians, but ones who also like to get their hands dirty and work with those really cool chemicals. So next we have the sail department. And the sail department is our artist, and they spend 8 weeks sketching out different designs. They paint the front of the sail of the mini boat launch from the US and the back of the sail of the mini boat launch from Japan. So the students, again, spend tons and tons of time planning out, making that sail perfect, figuring out if they want to use paints, what sort of paints. There's special UV fabric paints that they need to research and find. So again, the students have to make all of their investigations and find out which application is going to work best for them. The hull department is in charge of preparing the hull. This team is sanding. They're using anti-fouling paint so barnacles don't attach to the boat. They're designing and laying out their paint scheme, mixing their own colors with these really, really cool paints. But then again, they have to coordinate with the keel department to make sure that the keel paint job that the keel team does actually matches in with the motif. And that most of the time does happen. We also have the deck department, who are using the same technique that surfboard manufacturers use to make those really cool graphics on surfboards. They do all of their art and design on rice paper, and then we epoxy those onto the deck. But again, it is weeks and weeks of planning and deciding how they want their mini boat to go. They also have to work with the quartermasters to make sure that there is room for those instructions on the deck. Again, each part of the system needing to work together. The deck department also gets to design the figurehead, because every great boat needs to have a figurehead. And so some teams decide to design them on Tinkercad, and then we'll 3D print them, which is really cool. We've had a Tory gate, some sharks, or some students have actually gotten a Waldo or a bulldog, a mascot of their school, and again, mounted them on their boat as sort of a mascot. So students who are really interested in the science and contributing to science and technology are part of the cargo technology department. So these mini boats can be outfitted with solar panels for lights and different electronics, where we have mini boats that are out there measuring ocean temperature, air temperature, wave access. And it seems like every year we're getting to new and great things that these mini boats can measure. And the really cool thing is those GPS units uplink directly to NOAA satellites, and that data is being used in ocean modeling. So again, there is a team for just about every single student in that class. And here's some more technology. But we also know that not every kid is super into science, not every kid is super into engineering, but they're getting those parts, but we're just tricking them because they're using other applications. So we have a social media team who spends the day learning about each department and then sharing what they learned about each department on our Facebook page, sort of making those celebrations, which is really, really cool for those kids. We also have an international relations department who does all of our communication with our partner schools in Japan. And again, starting out with Google Translate and then double checking with native speakers. We have a VIP media relations team who writes press releases, invites media and VIPs, including Oregon Field Guide that followed one of our classes last school year, to come in and experience what we're doing. So this VIP media relations specialist is taking the Portland consulate around through their class, and we actually let him steep the mass to be part of it. One of our other VIP specialists invited Senator Betsy Johnson to the class. She wrote a letter and the senator showed up. And the student was so excited taking her around, and afterwards she said, "Nate, thank you for making this opportunity." And I said, "Don't thank me. You're the one that wrote the letter. You're the one that chose to send the letter and to who to send it to. You're the one that got her here. Your tenacity is what made this happen." And afterwards, the senator was so impressed with his student, she invited her to her office to follow her media specialist around the Capitol for the day. And also the student had the honor of carrying in the Oregon flag. Just, again, showing what just a little bit of tenacity can do for these students. And they also get to, the VIP students also get to conduct all of the media interviews. And then finally, for those students who don't really like any rules or be put in a box, they become our documentarians. This is what they get: an iPad that they get to take home with them for the entire semester so that they can create all these videos and share the stories of the school. So we have just about 2 or 3 minutes left. Is that about right, Rich?
Sure, if you, yeah, go ahead.
Great. I just, so we have some mini boats with some really amazing stories. And I don't think we have time to talk about all 3 of these, but if we could just talk about the very first one. This is the story of the Nishikaze, or what I like to call mini boat rescue mission Kiribati. In my 15 years as an educator, I've had some really amazing experiences and been fortunate to work with students from all over the world. However, this mission was really next level. It wasn't anything I ever imagined my job would entail. But at the beginning of each school year, I make a pledge to my students that if their boat crashes, I will do everything in my power to rescue that boat and get it back out into the ocean sailing. And that's how I found myself on a Fiji Air 737, headed to the 3rd least visited country in the world, Tarawa Atoll in the Republic of Kiribati. So this is the class that built the Nishikaze back in 2017. It was built by Richmond Elementary students, and their teacher was Miss Jenna Campos, which you can see pictured right here. So their mini boat was amazing. It caught the trade winds. It was launched off the coast of Baja, Mexico, and she sailed for over a year unimpeded. And then on January 4th, 2019, we lost all communication. And so we were a little sad, but sometimes in science, you know, you try, you fail, you try again. Well, a couple of months later, on March 20th, I received an email from a woman in a place called Kiribati. That mini boat sailed 14,000 nautical miles in 474 days, and it crashed, and I received a one-line email that said, "We found one boat in small plastic paper with piece of paper right on this website." So we know that the quartermasters did their job well. So after some research, we found out that the mini boat was actually in a very, very remote village where the X is here on the atoll, and there are no roads to get there. So when I landed in Tarawa, I had no idea how I was even going to find this mini boat. Through the help of my local friend and the meeting of a wild Australian, we were able to get a local villager to hire out his boat to us and take us across the atoll in search of the mini boat. We got a little bit lost along the way. He assured us he knew where he was going, but with an outrigger, we found the village. And as our boat came in, students and children and adults started coming out to greet us. And as soon as I left that boat, I showed them a picture of the Nishikaze. And I said, "Do you know this boat?" And they laughed and said, "Follow me." And they marched us for about 15 minutes through 3 different villages. And then around the corner, they pointed. And I saw the Nishikaze sitting under a banana leaf hut. So after an hour of meeting with the people who found her in the ocean, they actually saw her in the ocean, swam out over the reef, and brought her back in safely and contacted us. We loaded the Nishikaze back up and opened it up when we got back to the mainland and realized this is why she had stopped tracking. Inside of her cargo hold, the GPS unit had come unmounted, and by the waves and the jostling of the vessel had been smashed into many, many pieces. But also inside their cargo hold was a really great picture that the students put in of themselves at Richmond Elementary. So the next day, a new coat of paint got put on the mini boat Nishikaze, and I personally swam her through a channel out through the reef and pushed her out to go.
Bravo!
And she sailed her way all the way, still out there sailing. And as I watched her sail away, I was treading water, and thought came over me of, this can't be real. I'm physically swimming these students' mini boats whose promise I made to them months or years before that I would go to the ends of the earth to rescue their mini boat. And here I was pushing it out to sea. And I was reflecting on the name Nishikaze, which means western wind in Japanese, which she was currently catching. But the overall meaning of this project, the mini boat landed in Tarawa, where 75 years ago, 6,000 Japanese and American soldiers died fighting each other. And here this boat on a mission of peace built by students in Oregon for students in Japan was here. Did she have the plan all along? And that was sort of the poetic part of the mini boat program, is we want the students to learn about science and arts and engineering and mathematics and sciences and maritime traditions, but we also want them to connect with students across the ocean and just really build on those relationships. And so that's just a small, quick part of the mini boat program. And I just really wanted to thank everybody for inviting me to come in and share a little brief part of the story. And again, if you are interested in being involved in our program, if you have access to help us, we're actually in talks with NASA about trying to get some satellite photos of our mini boats out there in the ocean sailing. Or if you wanted to help be a mentor or a supporter of the program, please let us know, because it's communities coming together to help make this student project come true. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Nate. There's a lot of virtual clapping going on right now. I'm sure. And we do have a number of questions come in. The kids have been quite active, and we've been having to sift through them a little bit because they started asking early on, and I think a lot of their questions have been answered by your talk.
Well, I must mention I have a whole hour-long speech just on the Nishikaze, so that is just a minimal part of the amazing, amazing story. And I still think about those students every single day from that Nishikaze class.
Well, I think we have a couple of questions that we might be able to ask and get answered. I don't know, Lauren, do you want to do that or?
Yeah, I'll jump in. You may have answered this already, Nate, but a lot of students are curious if, and people in general, I'm sure, if any mini boats have made it across safely yet.
So we have not had a mini boat make it across the ocean yet. However, I have a really good feeling. We had a mini boat that was launched from Japan this Thanksgiving cross the international date line in February. So through the students' calculations, they think that mini boat, which is on track, it's just a little bit north of Hawaii right now, could make it to the shores in 2020.
That is amazing. Another question from Sarah asks, are there plans to kind of expand upon weather and water data collection for this project? Because you could...
Absolutely, and that's something that we're learning every year. Is the GPS unit it's an AP3 transmitter, so we're actually able to communicate on my computer. I can log in and I can communicate via the satellite with the mini boat and ask it to send me reportings on the hour, every 15 minutes, every day. And also some of those data collection points are able to be uploaded. So every year we're looking at trying to add some more measurable data just to kind of help contribute to science. And the major dream goal is to figure out how we can put a camera on board and upload like a photo every day. So we're always looking for mentors and sponsors who want to help us make that a reality and teach us how we can make that happen.
That is
hey,
awesome.
Nate, are there plans to get the kids involved in working with the data itself rather than just building the boats?
Yeah, and so once the boat is in the ocean, that's really when the teachers come in. So we have this thing called the Path tool, where the students can overlay weather data, wind data, wave data, temperature data, currents, and they can overlay it over their mini boat to help make their predictions. Because one of the things I forgot to mention is that the students in the United States every month will make a prediction of where they think that mini boat will be in 30 days. And the Japanese students do the same thing, and then they exchange their guesses. So we definitely want the students working with the data, and that's what we're trying to inspire after the mini boat's out to sea.
Or is there a particular software you're using, or
So we actually have data points that collect, so we can send each student just a data set of lat and longitude and times, and they can plot them themselves on a piece of paper sheets. But we're always trying to develop new software and figure out different things to make that work. So,
okay.
Another question from the students is, when, I'm sure you mentioned this before, but when did you start this program? Was that this year or?
Yeah, so the mini boat has actually been around since 2007. It was invented by a man in Maine who was getting too old to he wasn't getting too old. His wife thought he was getting too old to sail solo around the world. And so he came up with an idea about building a little boat with a GPS that he could track. And I met this gentleman and I thought, wow, this mini boat could be a really amazing educational tool for our students. And that's how we developed our mini boat program.
That's awesome. Another question is, what app do you use for 3D printing? So there's some interest around kind of that tool.
Yeah, so I typically have the kids use Tinkercad just because that's a pretty, it's all saved up on the cloud, and then they can work on it. Then I can come back to my office and take a look at it, make any adjustments, talk with them about it. And it's really easy to send out to get printed. But any application that a student is comfortable with, we'll let them use. Just usually seems most of the students are pretty familiar with Tinkercad.
Is that open source? Is the
Yes.
question for me.
Yes.
Another question is, has there ever been a boat that you couldn't find? So there's that boat that disappeared, but you did find it. Has there one?
Yeah,
that
so I'm not sure if you remember me showing the launch of the American Sunset off of the Bar Pilot's boat. So she was sailing for months and months and was just off about 100 miles off the coast of San Francisco, which was the perfect spot. She was so close to hitting those trade winds, and she just disappeared, and we have not heard a thing. And so in that area, you know, if she was flipped upside down by a big wave and wasn't righted, she would have drifted to shore, and hopefully somebody would have found her and let us know. So we have some theories that maybe she was struck by a freighter, pretty busy shipping lanes out of San Francisco, and some students thought maybe even a whale jumped up and landed on it.
I think there's just one more question, just clarifying kind of the gifts that the students traded. Those were given initially, right, when you shipped the boats, when you guys kind of traded boats.
The American students the cargo team prepares gifts for the Japanese students in the cargo hold of the boat that we bring to Japan. And then at the big ceremony, the students open up and then they take the gifts and then they put gifts for the American students back in the boat. But so the American students have to wait until their boat sails across the ocean to receive those gifts.
I see. And there was a question that was like, how do you keep the gifts dry?
Yeah, so the cargo hold is actually watertight, but what we've decided to do is we're actually vacuum packing some of those things. And then once we get the hatch on, then we actually use a special silicone all the way around the top to make sure no water is penetrating.
Great, it's important. Got to get those gifts. Yeah. Another student asked, where are the American students from? So this is kind of a local project, right?
Sure, yeah. So what we do is every June 1st, we put up applications on our Mini Boat Facebook page, which is CRM Mini Boat Program. And then we'll take applications from teachers all over the Pacific Northwest. The only real caveat is we like to keep the schools about 2.5 hours away from the museum because that gets to be a lot of traveling time for me going back and forth to the schools, because we visit the school for 90 minutes every single week for the first 8 weeks of the program. And then we're there once a month till the end of the school year. And I should also mention the program is 100% free to the schools. This is all done by the museum for the schools. So no cost for the schools at all. That's
lovely. There's one more question here, and feel free to keep them coming. You may have mentioned this already, Nate, but do you know where the Copper Rose is? I'm assuming, is that one of the boats?
Yes, I do know where the Copper Rose is. The Copper Rose was launched off the coast of Southern Oregon, off of Coos Bay, off of a Coast Guard cutter. She was sailing pretty well and got caught in a really large storm. And we put out the word to the fishing fleet to go out and try to rescue her before she crashed. And the entire fishing fleet had to come in because it was such a dangerous storm. And she is smashed into many, many pieces at a wayside near Bandon, Oregon. And there is, unless we can rappel down the cliff, there is no way to get those pieces of the Copper Rose, unfortunately.
Oh, reclaimed.
Yeah.
And we did just discuss this, but Tinkercad is a free and open source program, correct?
Yes. And what's really cool too is students can build one and then put it up there, and then other kids can take that and manipulate it and make it their own, make changes, which I think is really cool too.
Okay, we have another one that just came in. What do you usually put in the boats? I mean, we found out there's gifts in the boats, very important, but what else?
Yeah, well, I can tell you one gift that we used to always put in the boats the first 2 years, which we will never put in the boats again, is saltwater taffy. One of our boats was loaded of cargo of saltwater taffy, and she crashed in Baja, Mexico. And some person who was just hiking on this desolate beach found her and sent me an email and said, "I'm so sorry, I think she's stuck here forever." And unbeknownst to him, I had already had another fisherman coming inshore to go and grab it. And so a surfer from Baja drove it to their home in Colorado, where a teacher went and picked it up. And this fall, the students who are now in 6th grade opened up that cargo hold, and the smell of saltwater taffy sitting in the hot Baja sun for a year and a half and sailing in the ocean, believe me, it cleared the room. So we decided that no more edible goods. But typically there's letters, there's things representing their community. The Japanese students always put origami and Japanese toys, books. And really, the students usually put a t-shirt from their school, things like that.
That is great. That was our last question on the Q&A. Does anybody have any? Oh, another one just popped up. Nope, this one's just a joke. But any other questions about the presentation?
Well, there's one.
Okay.
There's a couple.
Yeah, so here's one. So has this program tried to have Japan launch its own mini boat program?
Yeah.
For the students there to make their own boats, and both students from each country can share their experience.
That's a great question. And actually, unfortunately, right now, I was supposed to be in Japan starting that program. So through one of our partners, it's basically like the NOAA of Japan has been really excited about our program the last couple of years. And when I was there in November, we met and we decided to make a partnership where the Japanese students were actually going to build their very own boat from scratch. And I was supposed to go deliver that boat. I was supposed to leave yesterday to make that trip. We're not sure with the situation in the world now. The mini boat program will go on. Students will build mini boats in the 2021 school year. We're just not sure on the timing of that and how it's going to work. But absolutely, we want to get the Japanese students building the boats from scratch themselves as well.
That's great. Another question. So which boat was from Miss Fly's 2019 class?
What was the teacher's class name?
Miss Fly's, F-L-Y-S.
Oh, yes, I believe that was the Copper Rose, which, and students, if you're listening, you can correct me. I don't have my dope sheet up here that tells me each boat's school. But I believe that was the Copper Rose that, that washed up and smashed into a bunch of pieces. But, you know, I can close this screen and I can actually, or you know what, you guys can send me an email if you'd like as well. And I can double check that information for you too. And if you go to the Maritime Museum's website and click on mini boats and click on the map of all mini boats at sea, you can actually find your boat and see what it's happening with too.
Another question is, what did the Copper Rose look like? So can they find that out on the website as well?
Yep. On each of the mini boat pages, it has pictures and all of that stuff on there. See if I can.
Yeah, you want to share your screen there? And
yeah.
Pull it up.
So you pull up the map here, and then it lists all of the different boats. And so if we go, we can click on the Copper Rose. It will show you its position, or you can come down here and you can click on it. Oh, actually, you click down here.
It's about midway up there.
There we go. And then that will take you to its page. So that's the Copper Rose.
Excellent.
And she actually crashed a couple of times and we got her back a couple of times too. So she did crash here on the beach in Seal Rock and we got her back and relaunched. So if you see on that webpage, it tells you the entire story of the boats and what happened.
Hey, can you ask Teresa's question there? And I think we're gonna
Yes. We'll close this out with this question, which is, you mentioned that NOAA is using the data from the mini boats. So how are they using that data, and is it proving valuable?
Yeah, so they're using it to do their ocean modeling with the currents and the weather patterns and also the temperature. So all of our data actually gets uploaded directly from the satellite to a NOAA website, and it just goes into their big supercomputer. And then also individual scientists who have questions about certain areas of the ocean can go and click on an individual mini boat's path and then can make studies with that. And also new this year, which is something we're trying to get some differential scientific data, is we also launched drifters, which are basically like a mini boat, but the sail is underwater. And that's measuring just ocean currents. And we're launching them at the same place as the mini boats to really see, you know, how much of a mini boat is powered by wind and how much is it actually powered by currents. And what we discovered from this year, it's about 80% wind, 20% currents.
Wow. All right. Thank you very much, Nate. I'd just like to point out that that website is a great resource if you have questions about the individual boats. And I noticed that we had a lot of questions about the individual boats. And am I right that your email address is easy to find right there?
Yep, absolutely. And I will be happy to respond to any and all emails.
Cool. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, but this recording will be available on Oregon URISA's website. It will also be emailed out to the attendees. The link will be emailed out. We're going to post it on Oregon URISA's YouTube video channel. I thank you all for coming. I hope that we'll have some more good content for you, you know, coming up in the next couple of months. I mean, we'll see about that. And at the very least, we'll be back with a GIS in Action conference next year, I'm sure. But thank you everyone for attending, and keep safe out there.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, Nate.
Bye. Thanks so much.